Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, and I'm your host, General Biography. Today, we're going to explore one of the most decisive conflicts of the ancient world, the Battle of Plataea, fought in 479 BC. This epic clash between the Persian Empire and a coalition of Greek city-states was a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars, shaping the course of Western civilization. As we embark on this journey, you'll witness the intricate dance of alliances, the genius of tactical innovations, and the unyielding resolve of warriors on both sides. In the early 5th century BC, the Persian Empire, under the rule of King Xerxes I, had been expanding its vast territories, absorbing various regions and kingdoms. The Greeks, with their city-state structure, presented a unique challenge to the Persians. The Athenians in particular had been a thorn in the side of the Persians since their victory at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC. This earlier battle had shown that the Greeks could stand against the mighty Persian army, but it also made them a prime target for Xerxes' revenge. As Xerxes began to prepare for his invasion of Greece, he spent years gathering a massive army and building a fleet to transport his troops across the Aegean Sea. The sheer scale of the Persian forces was daunting. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, including infantry, cavalry, and archers, all united under the imperial banner. The Greeks, on the other hand, were fragmented and often at odds with one another. However, they shared a common culture, language, and tradition of city-state independence, which would eventually become the foundation of their resistance against the Persian Empire. In 480 BC, Xerxes launched his campaign, marching his army through Thrace and into Greece. The Greek forces, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, made a famous stand at the narrow pass of Thermopylae. Although vastly outnumbered, the Spartans, along with a small contingent of other Greeks, held off the Persian army for 2 days, inflicting significant casualties. The bravery and sacrifice of the 300 Spartans, who fought to the last man, have become legendary in history. Ultimately, however, they were betrayed by a local resident who revealed a hidden path around the pass, allowing the Persians to attack from behind. The battle ended in defeat for the Greeks, but it bought them valuable time to prepare their defenses and rally more troops. The aftermath of Thermopylae saw the Athenians, under the leadership of Themistocles, evacuating their city, knowing it would be impossible to defend against the Persian army. They decided to focus on naval warfare, hoping to exploit the weaknesses of the Persian fleet. The Athenians had been building up their navy in the years leading up to the war, and they now had a formidable force of triremes, which would play a crucial role in the upcoming battles. Meanwhile, the Spartans regrouped and began to assemble a larger army, including contingents from other Greek city-states. The Spartans were renowned for their military prowess, and their phalanx formation, with its long spears and tight shields, was nearly impenetrable. However, they faced significant challenges in uniting the various city-states under a single command. The Greeks had a long history of internecine conflict, and it would take a monumental effort to put aside their differences and present a united front against the Persians. The Persians, having captured Athens and razed it to the ground, marched towards the Peloponnese, intending to crush any remaining resistance. The Greeks, now united under a single command, with the Spartan general Pausanias at its head, chose to make their stand near the city of Plataea in Boeotia. This strategic location offered them favorable terrain and the opportunity to face the Persians on more equal terms. The Greek army, composed of hoplites from various city-states, was a formidable force, disciplined and well-trained for phalanx warfare. The Spartans, with their long experience of battle, formed the core of this army. But they were not alone. Contingents from Corinth, Megara, and other city-states stood alongside them, united in their determination to repel the invaders. The Greeks had also learned valuable lessons from their previous encounters with the Persians, adapting their tactics to counter the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. As the two armies faced each other on the plains near Plataea, the air was thick with tension. The Persians, confident in their numbers and the success of their previous campaigns, anticipated an easy victory. However, they were about to encounter a Greek force that had learned from its past defeats and was now more united than ever. The Greeks, aware of the gravity of the moment, steeled themselves for the battle ahead, knowing that the fate of their city-states, their way of life, and the future of Greece hung in the balance. As the two armies faced each other on the scorching plains near Plataea, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. The Greek general Pausanias, aware of the numerical superiority of the Persians, decided to position his forces in a way that would minimize their disadvantage. He carefully placed the Spartans, with their renowned phalanx formation, on the right wing, where they could anchor the line and provide a bulwark against the Persian onslaught. The contingents from other city-states formed the center and left wing, each one bolstered by the presence of seasoned hoplites. The Greek army's flanks were protected by the Asopus River to the east and the foothills of Mount Cithaeron to the west, which limited the Persians' ability to outflank them. This clever deployment allowed Pausanias to funnel the Persian attack into a killing zone, where his troops could unleash their fury upon the enemy. The Greeks had chosen this ground carefully, selecting a site that would negate the Persian cavalry's advantage and allow their own infantry to shine. As the two armies faced off, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The Greek troops, eager to prove themselves against the mighty Persians, were buoyed by their recent victory at Marathon. They knew that they had the training, the discipline, and the determination to take on the best that the Persian Empire had to offer. The Spartans, in particular, were itching for battle, their long spears and shields at the ready. According to Herodotus, as the battle raged on, a mysterious event occurred. The Greeks claimed that they saw a divine sign, a shooting star or a flash of lightning, which they took as an omen from the gods. This event seemed to boost their morale and give them renewed confidence in their ability to defeat the Persians. The Greeks believed that the gods were on their side, and this conviction gave them the strength and courage to face the enemy with unwavering resolve. As the Persian arrow fire began to slacken, Mardonius gave the order for his infantry to advance. The Persian troops, with their characteristic noise and fanfare, charged towards the Greek lines, hoping to break through by sheer force of numbers. But the Greeks were ready for them. With a loud shout, they launched themselves forward, their long spears thrusting outward in unison. The collision between the two armies was fierce and intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Persian troops, however, were at a disadvantage. Their lighter armor and shorter swords made them vulnerable to the Greek hoplites' long spears and tight formation. The Greeks fought with a ferocity that bordered on desperation, knowing that their city-states and way of life hung in the balance. They had come to Plataea to defend their homes, their families, and their freedom, and they were determined to emerge victorious. As the battle raged on, the Persian lines began to waver. Mardonius, realizing that his troops were not making headway against the Greek phalanx, tried to rally them by riding up and down the lines, urging them to fight harder. But it was too late. The Greeks had gained the upper hand, and their momentum was unstoppable. The turning point of the battle came when the Spartans, led by Pausanias, managed to break through the Persian center. The Persian troops, realizing that their commanders were falling and their lines were being breached, began to flee in panic. The Greeks, sensing victory within their grasp, pursued them with reckless abandon, cutting down anyone who stood in their way. As the Persians fled, Mardonius was killed in the melee, reportedly by a Spartan named Aemnestus. With their commander dead and their army in disarray, the Persians were unable to regroup or launch a counterattack. The Greeks, on the other hand, continued to press their advantage, pursuing the fleeing Persians and cutting them down without mercy. The battle was far from over, however. The Greek troops, exhausted but exhilarated by their victory, continued to pursue the Persians, determined to destroy their army once and for all. As they advanced, they encountered pockets of resistance, including a group of elite Persian troops who had taken refuge in a nearby temple. But the Greeks were unstoppable, and they eventually overwhelmed these last holdouts, securing a crushing victory on the plains of Plataea. The aftermath of the battle was one of chaos and destruction. The Persian army lay defeated, its survivors fleeing in panic or being hunted down by the victorious Greeks. The Greek troops, meanwhile, were jubilant, knowing that they had saved their city-states and way of life from the Persian threat. As they tended to their wounded and buried their dead, they couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had faced down the mightiest empire in the world and emerged victorious. The Battle of Plataea was a defining moment in Greek history, one that would have far-reaching consequences for the city-states and the Persian Empire. For the Greeks, it marked a turning point in their struggle for independence, a proof that they could stand up to the greatest powers in the world and emerge victorious. For the Persians, on the other hand, it was a disastrous defeat, one that would weaken their empire and pave the way for future challenges from the Greeks and other enemies. As the dust settled on the battlefield of Plataea, The Greeks surveyed the aftermath of their hard-won victory. The carnage and devastation, a stark reminder of the brutal price paid for their freedom. The Persian army, once a formidable force that had seemed invincible, lay shattered and defeated, its survivors fleeing in disarray like a routed horde. The Greek city-states, having faced down the mightiest empire in the world, had emerged victorious, their independence and way of life secured against all odds. The air was thick with the stench of death, the scent of blood and sweat hanging heavy over the landscape like a miasma. The Greek warriors, exhausted but exhilarated by their victory, moved among the dead, tending to their wounded comrades and paying homage to the fallen heroes who had given their last full measure of devotion. As the months and years that followed, the Greeks would continue to consolidate their gains, driving the Persians out of their territories and establishing a new balance of power in the region. The Battle of Plataea marked a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars as the Greeks began to take the initiative against their foes, launching a series of counterattacks that would ultimately drive the Persians back. The brilliant tactical innovations employed by the Greek commanders, particularly the clever use of terrain and the deployment of the phalanx formation, had proven decisive in the battle, allowing the Greeks to exploit the weaknesses of the Persian army and shatter their enemies' morale. The significance of the Battle of Plataea cannot be overstated, for it had saved Greece from the brink of destruction and secured its place in the annals of history. As the Greek historian Herodotus would later write, the Battle of Plataea was the most important of all the battles fought between the Greeks and the barbarians, for it had preserved the unique cultural heritage of the Greek city-states, allowing them to flourish and produce some of the most iconic figures of ancient Greek culture, including Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. The victory at Plataea would also have a profound impact on the development of Western civilization, as the Greek city-states, now free from Persian domination, would go on to make seminal contributions to philosophy, theater, democracy, and the arts. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.